we can't allow any further delay.
This is episode 60. Today is Thursday, July 13th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Forgeron, joined by meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey, Katie.
Good afternoon.
And Camila Ortiz. Hey, Camila.
Hello, Jeff and Katie.
Yeah, it looks like Camila has taken over Mark Nelson's coat closet in the back of the KPTV studios.
Can you
really
see me
fancy
in
stuff.
the umbrellas hanging
nice
out?
umbrellas.
If you're watching Fox 12 now, which airs Fridays at 2 p.m., or if you're watching from YouTube, you get the fancy view of all of us in our various places, like me in my basement and Katie in the back of the studio
I'm
as
behind
well.
one of the monitors. That's one of the monitors you see there. That's on the other side where you look at the pretty pictures.
Yeah, when you're looking at us on TV, actually TV, you get to see, well, the other side of what Katie is sitting behind. So, guys, we are, well, first off, Mark Nelson is not with us, Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. He is on vacation, much deserved vacation, but he'll be back next week. We should be recording around Wednesday or Thursday of next week. The big story right now is the heat. We've had a pretty warm July so far. I ran the numbers this morning through the first 12 days of July, and we're running 3.5, 4 degrees above a typical first half of July again for the first 12 days. That puts us top 5 warmest Julys through the first 12 days. So not record breaking necessarily, but plenty warm. And we are sort of in the midst of another warm up. We had that mini heat wave last week, right around the 4th of July. I don't know if you guys have the numbers. Actually, I think I sent out the count. Yeah, Katie, you've got it. So, Katie, what were the final numbers just as a review for last week's heat wave?
So on the 3rd, it was 90. On the 4th, it was 96. And on the 5th, it was 98. And we just missed it on the 6th at 89.
Okay, so yeah, in that 98, we actually posted a high of 98 both in Portland and in Salem on July 5th. Those were the hottest days that we've had so far this year. So we have yet to hit 100 degrees. We don't necessarily hit 100 every year, but if we're going to hit 100, usually it happens. Well, our warmest time of year, let's put it this way, is late July into early August. So we're kind of entering that warmest time of year where the average high jumps up to about 84 or so at PDX. You guys have been working on the forecast, and it looks like Saturday is going to be the hottest day from what I was seeing this morning. I haven't looked at the latest runs, but yeah, let's talk about the forecast a little bit. Give our viewers what your thoughts are. I'll kind of chime in a little bit and give everybody plenty of heads up on what's to come.
Well, Camila, since you're first off today, why don't you go first?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
share.
Well, it looks like, Saturday is still going to be the warmest day. I think we still have that in the mid 90s. Is that right, Katie? For the 7 day?
Yep, we kept it at the mid 90s.
Yeah. So I think we're going low 90s, mid 90s, and then right around 90 degrees for the final day, right? And we're going, and that's for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So that's what it's looking like right now. The good news with this heat wave is that it's so short and, we're still not looking at extreme heat, which is great. It's fantastic that we don't see, at least from what I've been looking at, a good chance of things possibly creeping into the triple digits. That just doesn't seem to be the case with this one. So it's nice that we haven't had to talk about 100-degree days in Portland yet, considering I think July 15th is usually when we see our average first 100-degree day in Portland. And since our first 90-degree day was so early this year, I was kind of worried about it, but we're still holding out.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but watching as, learning more of the weather patterns here, because I'm, my career began in Central Oregon, so I was pretty accustomed to those patterns. But watching each time the new model runs come in, and usually when we're a week out, I pay attention to the next one. Is it more or less? Is it hotter or colder? Is it hotter or colder to see which way we're trending? And this particular one kept trending a little warmer, a little warmer, a little warmer till it got to the last couple of days. And it's held pretty steady where it is in the low to mid to low. So it feels, to me, that feels pretty solid for the temperature range that we'll have for this little mini heat wave.
So what Katie's saying, in other words, is models are in agreement, and
Finally.
we might make an adjustment by a degree or so here and there, but we feel pretty confident about the forecast. We're not looking at strong offshore flow, which would really, bring us into critical fire danger. Although we're going to have pretty high fire danger. The National Weather Service they've issued a fire weather watch at latest. That might be upgraded to a red flag warning by the time you're listening on, let's say, Fox 12 Now or on various platforms for our podcast. But we're going to have higher fire danger Friday and Saturday in the Willamette Valley and the foothills of the Cascades and out toward the Coast Range as well because of breezy conditions. You guys have been tallying our dry streak. We've gone now 23 days without measurable rain. So this past Monday was actually a relatively cool day. We only hit 72. We had that marine layer around. We had some drizzle, and PDX recorded a trace of rain, but that's not necessarily measurable. So we've gone quite a bit of time without any kind of rain. So, the vegetation is super dry. We're going to have lower relative humidity values. And anytime you add a breezy or gusty wind, even if it's onshore, it does raise the fire danger because if a fire breaks out in that environment, it's going to spread rapidly. So Friday and Saturday are 2 days we're going to have to be really careful. And obviously it's going to be plenty hot. And the National Weather Service has also issued a heat advisory. It's going to initially be focused down to the south, initially around southern central Willamette Valley, including Corvallis and Albany, and extending out to the central Oregon Coast Range. But then, so that's for Friday, and then it works its way up Saturday. So the heat will kind of build in from south to north, and that's kind of been the case farther south as well. This is an expansive heat ridge, guys. I mean, we're talking a ridge that's building from the eastern Pacific Ocean all the way to the southeastern United States.
It's just massive.
Let's see if I can actually screen share really quick and show you what this looks like on a map. So anybody that is watching us from, let's say, Fox 12 Now or on YouTube, they'll be able to see this. So you two, let me know if you can see the screen that I share here. This is only the second time that I've done it. Bear with us. We're still kind of working out the kinks here. All right, let me know if you can see that.
I don't see anything yet.
Not yet.
And it looks like it's trying to load here. And what I'm showing you is an upper level weather chart.
Here it comes.
Okay,
Let's
there
see.
we go.
There it is.
Yep.
So this is the 500 millibar temperature anomaly chart, and this is showing the heat ridge that's building overhead. Now, let's see if I can advance this a little bit. So we're going to take this out to Friday, Saturday, Sunday is when the ridge is going to be strongest overhead for us. So just advancing this graphic, and you can see that the heights, which tells you how high, how thick the atmosphere is. When we undergo a heat wave like this, the atmosphere kind of grows in height. So when we take this out to the warmest day that we're expecting, which is going to be Saturday, you can see that ridge builds up and down the West Coast and it extends up into British Columbia. So I'm kind of throwing my cursor over it for you right there. But notice where that ridge looks like it's centered. It's really centered over California, and there is going to be some really extreme heat coming down that way. I'm going to close this out. Having some audio issues here. So let's go ahead. Yeah, hopefully the program kind of fixes that audio issue. But so while we're going to be climbing into the 90s, we'll see some triple digit readings in central and eastern Oregon. The heat down south in let's say the desert Southwest, Southern California, Nevada, Arizona is going to be absolutely brutal. I was looking at some of the forecasts for, let's say, the Palm Springs area, Phoenix, and Death Valley. We're going the most extreme. Phoenix, as of today, has gone 14 days in a row above 110 degrees, at and above 110 degrees.
And that's a record for them.
Yeah. So I've read
Disgusting.
some meteorologists. It's awful. Yeah. I've read some meteorologists and climate scientists talking about this heat. And it's not only the extreme heat that the Southwest and the Southern Plains are dealing with, it's the longevity. It's just, we've got this ridge that doesn't want to move. It's kind of, stuck in place. And, we're lucky enough up north where we're going to see it kind of meander. So we'll get a quick cool down early next week. But so Phoenix is undergoing this long stretch of 110 plus degree days, and so are areas nearby. I know my hometown is Palm Springs. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the forecast is somewhere between 118 to 122. And
goodness.
And then Death Valley is going to be pushing into close to 130 degrees range on Sunday. Camilla, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. And I was just gonna add, it's not only the high temperatures. I was looking at, I believe, the graph yesterday. Just the low temperatures. They're in the upper 80s, low 90s early in the morning. So there's just no relief at any point in time with this thing just sitting over that region.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Phoenix posted an overnight low of 94 last night.
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken, that may have been adjusted by a degree or two. And I know, Camilla, from your point of view, you train during the early morning hours often in the midst of the heat. So it makes it really difficult to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you choose to be outside, you're just in horrific heat. I mean, even a dry heat, but you're talking about, high temperatures in the triple digits. That's unbearable.
And I was looking at some of the, world records for heat. The World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, has lists of record heat, and Death Valley is listed as having the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth at 134 degrees. Now, there is a lot of debate whether that is an accurate measurement or not. So some meteorologists and climate scientists just throw that one out. And they assume that the hottest temperature was 131 in Death Valley. That was back in, if I'm not mistaken, August 2020 and July 2021. That record was recorded. So it's very possible if a 131 degree reading or greater is recorded on Sunday, we could be talking about an all-time new record, depending on who's looking at it. So extreme heat, long duration heat, pretty brutal stuff happening down south. So the heat advisory is posted for guys. Katie, if I'm not mistaken, you probably looked at the latest stuff. Tell our audience who that includes, and again, the timing of that. And a heat advisory just categorizes like, okay, it's going to be, pretty dangerous heat if you don't have a place to cool down.
Yep. So it's pulling up here. There we go. So for the mid Friday to Saturday evening, it's for the Central Oregon Coast Range and the Central Willamette Valley, and that's temperatures low to upper 90s. And then once we get into Saturday, it expands north to include Portland Metro, the Western and Central Gorge, and that's just Friday afternoon and evening. Same thing, like low to mid upper 90s.
So again, not like the worst or not the most extreme heat we've ever seen, but plenty hot. There are still many homes and apartments that don't have proper air conditioners. So as we always say, now is the time to kind of plan ahead and find a way to stay cool. This is going to be a 3-day heat wave, so not long duration for us. And some of you may be curious why we don't go into first alert mode. It's a new it's our new branding that we have, and it's a way for us to bring more attention to extreme weather, whether that's a big snowstorm, ice storm, wind event, or heat wave, for instance. Just like the National Weather Service has criteria for their advisories and their warnings, we also do. And for a heat wave, there are several things that we, look for a first alert weather day, and that would be a temperature at and above 98 degrees in a heat wave, an overnight low at and above 67, which would make it a dangerously warm night, especially for those that don't have homes. And then on top of that, if we have back-to-back days or multiple days in a heat wave at and above 95, those would be first alert weather days. So we're like right on the edge of first alert, but we're not quite there. So this is going to be hopefully a pretty routine heat wave that doesn't, have any new fire starts or anything like that. Let's talk about Monday, because this past Monday, so today's Thursday when we're recording, this last Monday was interesting, right? And Camilla and Katie, I know that we're all kind of part of a group chat with Mark. I think Drew is also included on it as well. That marine layer can be tricky, huh?
Oh,
It's
curse
very
that
tricky.
marine layer.
Yeah, and I didn't have to deal with that because the marine layer obviously did not make it over to Central Oregon. So I'm definitely learning about it while being here. And I was going to ask you this later, Jeff, but why don't you just go ahead and answer this right now? So Mark and I've talked about the marine layer, and he showed me what maps he uses and kind of worked me through on what he looks for when he's looking at them. But the way I understood it when Mark was kind of coaching me through this was it was when we had a northwest onshore flow. And with this trough coming through, what we're seeing on Monday is more of a southwest onshore flow. So how does that impact the marine layer if it's coming from more the north than the south?
It doesn't. So I think initially we get that southwest flow, depending on where the heat ridge is building in and where it, or, how it transitions out of here. But I think eventually, for instance, the metro area almost always gets back into that northwest flow because we get that air coming up the Columbia River, from what I understand. So let's see. Your question is, how does it affect the marine layer?
Yeah, because when it coming in from the northwest, we get, the water temperature is different than the air. And that's when those clouds come in and it cools down the coast. And we saw that, temperatures were supposed to be low 80s, and we made it into like the low to mid 70s. And that, is what kept our temperatures. But if it's coming from a different direction, a different temperature water, or, a different, because I know from when I went through school, you always look at where the air is coming from. That's the most important thing, because you're looking at what water mass is it coming over? Is it a warmer water? Is it a colder water? And so if it's coming from the south, it's going to be a warmer water. So it seems to me like that would impact how thick maybe that marine layer could get.
Yeah. I can't really describe how it might impact the thickness of the marine layer, but I will say that the surface water temperatures from about the Washington coast all the way down to California right now are somewhere in the 50s. So we don't see a huge change in sea surface temperatures from just, let's say, the southern Oregon coast to the northern Oregon coast.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would necessarily affect our temperatures too much, our air temperatures. Of course, flow and strength of flow and where that marine layer is already building will have an effect on the thickness in our western valleys. We should save that question for Mark, because he might have a different perspective on it. But I don't think, let's say, a 6 millibar pressure gradient from southwest or northwest will have a huge change in our air temperatures. Again, I'd be curious to hear what Mark has to say on that, though. But what I was trying to get at, as far as this marine layer goes, is if we have a really thick marine layer again, like we did this last Monday, we only hit 72 degrees. So we barely squeaked out a high in the low 70s. It's always a roll of the dice, I feel like. I mean, we can look at as many high resolution and low resolution models as possible. For all of you listening at home, we're talking about this upcoming Monday. The heat wave is going to end Sunday evening. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this cooler marine air is going to pour in overnight heading into Monday morning, and you're all going to wake up west of the Cascades to cloud cover. The question is, how long does the cloud cover linger? How long do the low clouds linger into the afternoon? Do we see cloud cover until sunset? Do we see it until 11 o'clock in the morning? That will dictate how warm or cool we are. Yeah. And from what I understand, we still have highs in the upper 70s on Monday, this upcoming Monday after the heat wave. So
we might be adjusting that down as we get closer.
Yeah, and that's going to be, who's working this weekend? Both of you are working this weekend, so that's going to be kind of on you guys, right?
Yeah.
I'm out this weekend.
Oh, yeah, Camilla's
Mark
off.
will be back.
Oh.
Yeah, so that'll be helpful for me. The other thing, too, I was just real quick going back, is when Mark and I were working through and just helping me understand how these marine layers impact us, is we actually went and looked from the top of the West Coast all the way down and looked at the sea. We got on a map and just looked at everything and talked through that and saw the differences and how it's actually warmer away. We have an upwelling that's happening. So our temperatures at the coastline are actually cooler than they are out in the deeper waters. So it was so fascinating. I loved getting a little more into it, because obviously I learned about marine layers, but I never forecasted one before. So I am learning quickly.
Well, and the crazy thing about those is models can only do so well with them. And Jeff, maybe you can shed some light on, are there additional things you're looking at to try to predict when that marine layer is going to mix out? Because like Monday, for example, right? Like everything I looked at said, this is going to be cleared by early afternoon. And it didn't turn out that way.
You know, one thing I like to look at, you can have all the model agreement in the world, but something that I like to do, and not just with the marine layer, Camilla, but I like to look back at previous events, even last week, and how it played out, and some similarities in the forecast. So I was looking at, just for instance, like how warm could we be if we have 17 degrees Celsius, 850 millibar temperatures? And I was looking at how it played out last week. So sometimes you can find clues in previous forecasts, especially in similar time of the year when we have a similar amount of daytime heating, you know, when the sunrise and sunset is around the similar time. So that would be my best push, is to look back at, you know, previous, you know, the way things had trended previously. And because if, you know, the NAM-NEST model and the IBM graph model are both showing a clearing at 2 o'clock, we're probably going to go for that. But if it lingers another 2 hours, then that could affect our temperature by 5 degrees.
Yeah, it could totally bust the forecast. Yeah.
So, so bottom line is we have a 3-day heat wave coming. It'll stay hotter a little longer in central and eastern Oregon because the ridge kind of will work its way east, and then, you know, west of the Cascades, you know, the Cascades act as a barrier. So cool air comes in, and it oftentimes comes up shy of folks in central and eastern Oregon. Katie knows this very well because she spent a decade in Bend. So Monday and probably Tuesday will be much more reasonable. Somewhere, I would assume, between the mid 70s to low 80s. And then that same heat ridge comes back into play. It's huge.
It looks nasty. Yeah.
It's a big boy. So as we say, it moves east, it's going to be situated over the Great Basin in the Southwest, Intermountain West. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we see it creep right back to the west. We call that a retrograding high pressure system. Some of us do. And you guys worked on the mid to late week forecast last week, and are signs still pointing to upper 80s, low 90s?
Yes.
What do you think about another heat wave? What do ensembles tell you?
So I always like to preface this by saying anything more than 2 days out, just for people that don't listen. I know it's going to change, so don't pin me on this because we're, a week away from this, but it's showing a 5-day stretch.
Ooh,
of 90-degree temperatures.
Okay.
More low to mid, nothing, triple digits, but it's at the ensembles right now. We're showing a 5-day stretch next week, end of next week.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in May we had the 4-day long heat wave of highs at and above 90s. So this will be right around that, or maybe a little bit longer, which again, not completely unusual. This is one of the hottest times of year here in the Pacific Northwest. But again, an average high is 82 or so right now. So
still at 82.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get more heat advisories and things like that if the forecast pans out. The lack of extreme heat, though, has meant really good gardening for many of us here in the Northwest. I have all sorts of stuff happening in the backyard, thanks to my wife, who's usually the caretaker in the evenings of the garden. But Katie, I know you've been gardening. Camilla, we can just kind of, what you said something to us before we even started the podcast. So why don't you repeat yourself?
So I'll get into these stretches where I'll remember to water the plants, and it's great. And I'll go out there with the dogs and we play with the hose. It's all fun and games. And then I get locked into training and forget. And then a week goes by and it's been hot and dry. And then all of a sudden all my plants are dead.
Oh.
So that's kind of where we are. But the good news is it's not like I planted, veggies, fruits, things like that. It's just very landscapey type plants. So it's not a big deal. Couple grasses. It's fine.
So I was going to say, if you do veggies, if you decide to do that, you need to get one of those water bulbs that you fill it up and then you turn it upside down and you stick it into the soil. So it just waters it a little bit each day. So you don't actually have to go out and water every day. That way you can focus on training.
We're going full,
yeah, I forgot
full
about
irrigation system. I already have a guy lined
drip
up.
System?
Don't you worry. Yeah.
Nice. There you go. Hey, before I forget, and before we talk to Katie about her garden, Camilla, my Katie actually got some little, I don't know where she got them. She must have pulled them out of our garden, but we have little tomato starts that are sitting on the windowsill that are going to waste right now. So if I bring those to the weather center, will you, okay.
I will. Okay. I need to put reminders in my phone to water them, but yes.
Okay. Well, they're growing in a windowsill right now. You. So they're little, perfect. They're sitting in a cup. They have tons of roots on them. So okay, we found a home for them. That's good. Okay.
Yay!
All right.
Tomatoes.
All right, and I think last time we talked, Katie, which was a couple of weeks ago, about your garden, you had some tomatoes coming in. So what's the latest?
They are bright and red, and I'm having to fend my children off to. I love letting them like fully ripen on the vine. You know that saying, they taste so sweet because they ripen on their vine. Like that's like. That's something I want. So they're just watching them out the kitchen window. Can we eat them yet? Can we eat them yet? So I'm letting them go. But something that I've never had to deal with before, and it's partly because I knew what I was doing when I started my gardens before, and I didn't start this one because the house had already been landscaped, is I don't have enough pollinator plants in my backyard right now. And so my zucchinis are not getting pollinated properly because there's not enough like bee attracting plants back there. So my zucchinis are getting about 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches long, and then rotting and going bye-bye because they're not getting pollinated properly. And so I'm a little sad about that because I have like 4 really great starts right now, and I just know they're not going to make it because I need more bees. But we've been eating cucumbers and we've been eating bell peppers. And
Yum.
I've just been strawberries, like everything has just done so well this year. It's been nice.
Oh my gosh. So on the subject of bees, I haven't mowed my lawn in a couple of weeks because it's too dry right now. And we have all sorts of like, dandelions and weeds coming in. And I can't tell you how many bees are just roaming around the backyard. In fact, Pepper, the weather dog, is nervous, is scared of bees. I think she can hear them. And I think she's been stung previously because she comes down the steps off our deck and she doesn't want to jump into the grass. She goes straight into the garden because she avoids the bees. If I can somehow send some bees your way, Katie, I will start working on that. We have 12 tomato plants growing, various varieties, lots of peppers.
Did you guys prune them like we talked about last time?
Yes. Yeah. We are going to have probably an abundance of tomatoes. They're not,
nice.
Only a few of them have turned like yellow, I think. But we haven't had many red ones yet. But salsa is coming, my friends. We're gonna be doing all sorts of stuff.
way.
And if you get too many, let me know. I'll take some because I like to make tomato basil soup in the summer and then freeze it and have it in the freezer for the winter.
Hold on. You have tomatoes, Katie. These need to go to the person who grow tomatoes. I have no tomatoes.
No. I'm not saying for me. I'm saying I'll make it and I'll share it with you guys.
Okay.
I only have a cherry tomato plant this year because you missed the earlier conversation about this, Camilla. I'm doing a pot garden this year because I'm trying to learn my yard since it's my first summer there before I put things in. So I have 1 cherry tomato plant that's just enough for my boys to eat off of. But if Jeff has 12 and he's in abundance, I will make a big pot of tomato basil soup and bring it in and share the love. But we make it in the summer and then save it for the winter so we get to eat off of it later on.
It sure is nice to have a teammate that's offering, stuff that she makes from home. Sharing it with everybody on the weather team. Sounds great, right?
Absolutely.
We have this other teammate that makes cakes and brings it in. Hey, Mark, you want to try it? And all of a sudden it's gone. I don't even hear about it from there on out.
Okay, but you have to recognize that I am married to a Johnny, okay? Nothing lasts more than a day in our house. So if I can salvage even a slice, that's a miracle.
There you go.
Well, just like Owen does on the weekend, because he catches his salmon on the Columbia and then he fillets it out and then he writes everybody's name who's working on it that day and puts it in the fridge. So I get to take fresh salmon home on the weekend.
Wow.
I will do the same thing for you.
Wait. So Owen is the host of Outdoor GPS, which airs on Fox 12 Plus. If you haven't seen that, that airs right after Good Day Oregon ends on weekends. And wait a second, he brings you salmon?
Yeah, I'm
every
also
Saturday.
What?
I get it every weekend. If he's caught one, he has fillets and everybody's names written on it, and it's in the little fridge in the small. Where's she going?
Well, I
Camilla
thought
just got...
she just quit. Yeah, see what you did? No, you know what's fun?
upset.
Well, I thought Owen and I were boys. Like we have a connection when I come and fill in on the, and I chat with him
So
on the
good.
weekends. But I didn't know that, you know, I had to work consistently in order to get the salmon hookup. So that's
it's
that's-
so good. So
that's a big deal. That's nice.
and they're
nice.
amazing. It's amazing. It's fresh caught. It's usually from like the day before, and so it's amazing. So
We work with
what I'm
some-
trying to say is I will share the love of your tomatoes. I will make something and make sure that there is a bag with your name on it in the fridge that you can take home.
And let's not stop there before we wrap up this conversation. We have tons of cucumbers coming in. My Katie has been making pickles. She's been pickling them and with various other things. We have squash coming in. I've used that in Indian food. We have we're trying to grow pumpkins. And it hasn't been successful yet. In fact, they're taking over the garden. We're hoping that doesn't become an issue here. And we have carrots coming in. So yes, we will share everything with you, Katie, so that you can make all the good things. And then Camilla hopefully can make dessert because that's her thing.
That's all I can contribute.
I do make a pretty mean dill pickles, pickle relish if you have extra cucumbers for that. So in my previous garden, I would grow everything, the onions, the bell peppers, and the cucumbers, and I would make a dill pickle relish out of it. And my family loves it. So if you have extra cucumbers, because mine are being eaten too quickly, let me know.
One more request, and that would be, can you like write a cookbook and like everything?
Ooh,
so
that'd be great.
When you watch us on Good Day Oregon or on Fox 12 in the evenings or at noon, there's a big weather monitor that we stand next to before we get into the forecast. What you don't see is behind that big TV monitor is we have all sorts of stuff taped on the back. We have a Weather Hall of Fame. We have former teammates on there, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of stuff. We should have Katie's cookbook back there, I think.
Or like a recipe of the week or something.
Yeah.
To go with the weather term of the week.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like
yeah.
it.
And we're going to try to bring in a weather term of the week starting hopefully next week if my mind works, if my memory works, because I've kind of been I've kind of been forgetful lately, but we have a lot of plans with the Fox 12 Weather Podcast, but big story, of course, heat wave. Just be prepared for the heat. We'll get a quick cool down early next week. Heat ramps back up. It's July. We're used to some heat around here, but hopefully we stay clear of the extreme heat. I'm wrapping this up because it's 3:42, and one of you is doing the 4 o'clock news. I don't know who it
That
is.
would be
Just on
that
makeup.
one right there.
Help.
I'm here for you. I'll start working as soon as we hang up.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us for episode 60 of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. Can't believe we've made it this far. We're going to be back next week. Mark Nelson will be joining us. Until then, stay cool during the heat wave soon.
And tell us, please tell us.